Example 1 from page 13 from your textbook, not your workbook, textbook. All right, and here it is. It says graph the function f of x equals x squared. Now, we know what that looks like because that's just y equals x squared. Now, the difference is they're saying in the domain, -2 to 2. I apologize for this camera focusing and refocusing. If I don't, it comes out a little fuzzy. So I'm going to stick with the refocusing. I apologize. It's a little obnoxious, but I'll try to work the kinks out. There, I think I just worked the kinks out. I'm not letting it automatic focus. So here we go. So we're going to graph this. So we're like, okay, let's just focus on that. That would look like this. And this. Perfect? No. But it gets the job done. Now what this is saying is only from -2, including -2. So if we put -2 in and we squared it, that'd be 4. So -2, 4 would be right here. And if we plug this outside extremity in, so that means everything in between -2 and 2. So -1, 0, 1, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. But we're going to talk about the outside extremities here. Plug 2 in. 2 squared is also 4. My drawing's not perfect, but okay. So what they're really saying is don't even worry about this portion of the graph. Even though it exists, they're saying don't think about it. Only focus on this. So there it is. It says the graph of G, now don't forget, we just graphed F. So this is F of X. It says the graph of G is the graph of F after the translation. Remember, that's up or down. 3 units down. So all we got to do is take this thing and drop it down 3 units. And now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to make it pink. And so it's going to look like, so this is up 4. So that needs to go up here to 1. And this needs to also go. So this is -2, 4. It needs to go up to 1 right there. So I hope I didn't confuse you. All I did was drop this thing down 3 units. So this unit was supposed to drop exactly down 3. This unit is supposed to drop down exactly 3. And every single unit in there. So you just drop it down, okay? So we're down 3. Now let's talk about what the question wants. How are the equations, let's stop right there, related? Well, we know that f of x is equal to x squared. Now, in the pre-lesson, we learned that if we drop something down 3, that g of x, because this is now g of x, the pink one, is just the same thing down 3. So, where do I put it? Well, I could go like this. I could go x squared minus 3. Remember, if it's on the end, it's just going to drop it down 3. Now, the book gets a little fancy and says g of x equals f of x, which don't forget, f of x equals x squared. So they're just saying you take f of x, the original, which is x squared, and then you subtract 3. So this is the book's way of doing it, and this is the way that Mr. K is more comfortable thinking of it as, okay? All right, so that's just the equation. Now what about the domains? Well, don't forget, domain means how far left and how far right do they go? Well, if you notice, the original f of x goes to -2 from the left, and it goes to the right to 2. So we're talking about the x values, not how high it is. We're talking about the x values. So the domain portion of f, we already talked about, it's -2 to 2. They told us to stay in that domain. But did the domain change for the pink one? It did not, because that still left -2, still right +2. So that did not change. No change in the domain. How about the range? Well, the range, remember, the range is how low does it go to how high does it go. And so if we concentrate on f of x, like, okay, the range, how low does it go? 0. How high does it go? Well, it stops here and here because of the limitations of the domain they gave us initially. So it only goes up to 4, because this is 2, 4, and this is -2, 4. So how high does it go? 4. Now, what about g of x? Well, that range, because it dropped down 3 units, notice, now the lowest point is -3. The highest point is up 1. So that's a fancy way of just saying, hey, the range changed. G of x went down 3. That's a fancy way of saying it. Okay? That's it for example 1. All right, example 2 should be a lot easier than example 1, I think. Just follow the instructions. You guys got to learn how to read, just step by step. Don't be overwhelmed by all of this. Graph this. Okay. Again, you can use Desmos, but I'm going to use the old school. There's my y-intercept. Then I'm going to go up to right 1 and try to do my best job at drawing it somewhat straight. I could use a straight edge, I guess. And there is f of x. And it says, and the function g, which means a whole different drawing, graph, equation, whose graph is the reflection, here we go, of the graph of f, that just means take this one, across the x-axis. So in other words, if this is the x-axis, whatever's above it goes below it. So this portion right here, I'm going to draw like this, a mirror image over the x-axis. That's what it's asking me to do. But then this portion, all of it's below the x-axis, is now going to be above it. And I didn't do it perfect, but it gets the job done. So now it says, how are their equations related? If you did a good job listening to the pre-lesson, I gave you a nice trick. All that means is that g of x would be these with a negative. So you would just make it -2x plus 6. And if you don't believe it, type it in Desmos. But that's a little trick for you. Whenever you don't believe something, and again, I could be wrong, you can check it with Desmos. But now, the book is going to make it a little more difficult, and they're going to say g of x equals negative, whatever that was, f of x. That's just a fancy way of saying put a negative through f of x, which is 2x minus 6. This is just a fancy way of saying that. Either one is fine, but you should be prepared to be able to answer both versions. All right, last example, example 3, page 15 from your textbook. Again, pay attention to the instructions. Graph f of x equals the absolute value of x. Well, that means y equals the absolute value of x. So if we take the absolute value of -4, it's 4. Notice I'm putting it underneath f of x. The absolute value of -2 is 2. The absolute value of 0 is 0. The absolute value of 2 is 2. The absolute value of 4 is 4. Notice it says with the domain -4 to 4. Remember, these are my x's. They've already done that for us because they go from -4 to 4. So that's the only window they care about. Now, if we plot all those points, it's just going to be 0, 0, negative 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 4, negative 4, 4, and we're getting, whoops, I almost went outside of the domain there. They only want that picture. Now again, my drawing's not perfect, I apologize. All right, so there's f of x. Now it says g of x is simply f of x times 2. In other words, we're going to double this. We're going to make that 8, because g of x equals double whatever f of x is. So we're basically doubling these. So that's a 4, that's a 0, that's a 4, and that's an 8. So now we're plotting the points negative 4, 8. So negative 4, 8, negative 2, 4, 0, 0 stays the same, 2, 4, 4, 8. And as you can see, I'm going to make this one pink. So all of these points here that go together create this. Now, it has some questions for us. It says, how are the domains and ranges related? Well, let's find out what the domain is. So the domain of f of x, again, they told us, stay in that domain, negative 4 to 4. But if you look at the picture, from negative 4 to 4, how far left does it go? Negative 4. How far right does it go? 4. Negative 4 to 4. What about the pink one? G of x. What's the domain? Well, once again, how far left does it go? Stays the same. Negative 4. How far to the right does it go? 4, even with that change. So that too does not affect the domain. Now, what about the range? Well, in the case of the range, we're going to take a look at first f of x. That's just the pencil one. How low does it go? Again, remember, you always start with, I should put colon there. How low does it go? 0. What's the height that this thing gets to? Well, it only gets to 4. But it gets there, so we put a bracket in there. Now, what about g of x, the pink one? Well, how low does that go? That's the same. How high does it go? Well, as you can see, it gets up to 8 here, and it gets up to 8 here, so the highest point is 8. So the range is times 2. G of x is times 2 of f of x. So that's how they're related. All right, that's it, guys. Good luck on your homework assignment. See me if you have any questions. Don't let this stuff get out of hand. Just stick with it, ask questions, and power through those struggles. All right, guys.